Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Yablonowitz. I'm the president and CEO of BBC Global Services. And today I'm super excited for this webinar. For it was one of the main reasons why many of our clients find us and come to us in one fashion or another. Burnout comes in a lot of flavors, but some of them manifest in clients forced to spend a bunch of time handling day-to-day minutia that not only is stuff they don't want to do, but is truly not worth their time on a per hour basis. Forgetting about the fact that it is simply not worth their time, but having to manage all these admin types of tasks in addition to doing the actual work they need to do to grow and run the business or clinic, leads to things such as health problems, fatigue, and in many cases, a less than functional family dynamic. As an entrepreneur myself, I have fell victim to this more than once, leading to a little bit of burnout more than once. However, through tools and resources, I learned how to create a good balance. Although my wife sometimes would not always agree. Today, I'm pleased to have two guests here. One is Nathan Bush, our own company communication ambassador, who will lead this webinar, and Matt Schneider, military man, serial entrepreneur, thought leader, and overall extremely fascinating guy. And as he says, he's come from SEAL to an 8-figure entrepreneur. I chose to showcase these two people for they can provide actual accounts on how they manage burnout. Nathan can speak to this, for before coming to BBC, he was a client and utilized our services to help cost effectively battle this for not only him, but his entire call center staff. And Matt was looking for some staff for one of the firms that he has an invested interest in to help combat this as well. In addition to this, I've known Matt for a while, and he has a really cool way to personally delegate and manage multiple companies and priorities. And as he says, his wife still really likes him. Without further ado, I want to send this off to my master of ceremonies, Nathan Bush. Take it away, buddy.
Hey, Mike, thanks. Appreciate it. And thanks, Matt, for being on our webinar today. I'm super pumped to have both of you here and the opportunity to share about burnout. I got a personal story I'm going to share with everybody, and then I'll bring you back up, Matt, and Mike will bring you back up later on for questions. So give me a few seconds here, and I want to share a personal story with you guys about burnout. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about managed burnout. And so I used to work for a large medical device organization in the St. Louis area and surrounding areas. That's where I live and grew up. And what was interesting about this medical device organization is we grew from 2 million to over 20 million in revenue, and we did that in 4 years. It was a testament to the team, but the team, as you're growing that fast, they're taking on a lot of additional work. And one of the challenges we had is people couldn't answer the phones and make their outgoing phone calls to set up appointments so that we could translate into more revenue. We got bottlenecked and stuck. So one of the things we were able to do with BBC Global Services help is we were able to centralize the call volume in through a call staffing program like BBC Global. And I'm so specific not to use technical words like call center, because BBC Global is really an uncall center. What they were able to do is to help our staff be able to follow our policies and procedures with their staff, and then implement systems, tools, resources, reports that helped our organization actually bridge that gap to get from 2 million to 20 million in revenue. So it is because of organizations like BBC Global, specifically this partner, that could help our team deal with burnout. When staff members are overworked, they often get frustrated and productivity goes down. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. When staff members get frustrated and overworked, they often sometimes get a little bit sloppy in their work. And so I have firsthand experience managing from the very high level, 119 employees total, with 30 outsourced telemarketing representatives and in-sourced call center agents. They were able to help us navigate and manage kind of that burnout piece. So that's why this is so near and dear to my heart. And if you guys are here for the burnout program, I'm gonna have to tell you one thing. This is gonna be burnout. I know it's an interesting topic. Silence the cell phones. Take some time today and allow this information to seep in, because we've got some really good information to share with you. And if you hang on until the end, we've got a great program that we did a couple of months ago where we actually walk through HIPAA. So if you're wondering, is my organization HIPAA compliant? Do we follow a lot of the protocols and rules that are necessary to work with vendors and other outside organizations? This webinar is a great program. And if you hang on till the end of this, we can send you out this webinar just for you guys being a part of this program today. So you're going to want to stay to the end to receive that gift. All right, guys. We're going to cover a number of things today on this webinar, and you're just going to have to hang tight because we got a lot of information jam-packed, and our special guest, Matt, you're not going to want to miss from SEAL to the real deal. This guy is incredible, serial entrepreneur, has done a great job in his career in growing organizations, and so burnout's a real, he's going to tell you, just like we dealt with in the medical device organization, lots of organizations experience this burnout concept. And so we're going to talk about what is burnout. We're going to talk about where does burnout come from. We're going to talk about what are some of the current statistics around burnout in your medical industry. We're going to talk about understanding two types of burnouts. We're going to highlight, we're going to talk about how to light the fire for your staff and understand what puts it out. And we're going to talk about what are your options to help support your staff in this burnout experience, right? So there's a lot of different things that we could cover in this burnout. Those are the things that we're going to cover today. And so if you're wondering, like, who is this webinar for? Who is this going to help? Well, this will help a number of people, especially if you're a business owner, small business owner, but specifically this webinar is going to help you if if you're a medical office manager or if you're a physician. It'll also help you if you're a practicing clinician. It'll also help any other healthcare professional that's in the healthcare industry. Remember, BBC Global specializes in this medical VA world. And so you're going to learn all about that today. Let me tell you also who this is not for. If you're on this webinar and this is you, you can hop off. It's okay. People who are not actively seeking to reduce staff burnout and improve job satisfaction in their medical practice. If it's not you, hey, you know what? It's okay that this isn't for you. It's also for people who are not willing to invest. This program is not for people who are not willing to invest in time and resources necessary to implement the strategies discussed in this presentation. So if you're not going to do anything with the information, don't waste your time. This is also not for people who are not open to the idea of using medical virtual assistants. If you haven't been exploring that idea or concept, you know what? I don't want to waste any of your time either, because we are BBC Global Services. And lastly, this is not for people who are looking for self-care, unproductive type that show up to presentations like this to be given permission to work less and care more about yourself. That's not what this presentation is about either today. It is specifically about this concept called burnout. And I'm going to bring Matt up in just one second. But before I do, I want to take you to this Disney movie, Encanto. I know it's silly. It's in the middle of a professional presentation. Why are we talking about Luisa and when she's singing to Maribel? And let me just read the lyrics of this song to you, because I find it imperative in understanding the concept of burnout. The song goes like this. It says, I am the strong one. I am not nervous. I'm as tough as the crust of the earth is. I move mountains. I move churches. And I glow because I know what my worth is. Then later, Luisa goes on to expose this vulnerability, this concept of burnout. This is what it feels like. It says, under the surface, I feel Berserkus is a tightrope walker in a three-ring circus. Under the surface, Hercules, were you ever like, yo, I don't want to fight Cerberus? Under the surface, I'm pretty sure I'm worthless if I can't be of service. And so maybe you personally feel like that, or maybe you have some team members that on the outside, they appear strong, they appear fit, they appear ready to go. And yet, under the surface, maybe they feel that they're going a little berserk in your organization. We want to make sure that we spend some time talking to you to help you chill kind of that staff member down and help you to have a better understanding of what burnout is. I'm going to bring Matt up. Matt, I appreciate you being a part of our webinar today. And you're entrepreneurial, serial entrepreneurial, and have dealt with this concept of burnout. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what you've done, and how you've dealt with burnout over your career? Microphone's muted, but we'll bring that microphone back up. Still can't hear you. Give you a couple seconds here. I saw the mute button go on and off, and then nothing. That's all right. That's why when you're doing these things live, technical difficulties do arise.
How's that?
That sounds perfect.
Is that better? Okay. So you get the big expensive microphone, and then you end up having to use a webcam. But thanks for having me, dude. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah. So background-wise, just one correction in the introduction is I'm former SWAT, not a SEAL.
Okay.
One of my best friends, Ray Cashcare, is a Navy SEAL, and him and I are from similar backgrounds, but I'm not a SEAL. They're
okay.
Yeah, some on me, but I did do 10 years in law enforcement. Part of that time, 5 years, was an entry operator on a SWAT team, and then was with the U.S. Marshals fugitive team for a while as well. I do have the unique credential in my background of being somebody who has made on 2 occasions methamphetamine twice from scratch, and that's not something that a lot of people can say, but I can, and it was done totally legal under the supervision of the DEA as part of a school I went through. But in 2013, became an entrepreneur, and it's been a wild ride, man. You know, there's when it comes to burnout, there's a couple different elements to it. The thing, number one, with burnout is the entrepreneur themselves, right? So, you know, I experienced this earlier on, and have since worked it out over the course of the last 10 years. Quite a while ago, but it's something I also work with a number of my coaching clients on, because this is a webinar for people in the medical field, and I have a number of doctors and surgeons and people from the medical field as clients. And when you are the entrepreneur and you are tasked with doing all the things in the business and on the business, and because you're the technician that's doing all of the work, you're also somebody who doesn't have the luxury of necessarily walking away. You are the high earner, and that can be something that eventually leads to really problematic burnout, because you just don't have the option of going on vacation. You don't have the option of getting sick. You don't have the option of not being in the office doing the thing. And because of that, it takes its toll when the family, the husband or the wife or the kids are telling you, we just don't see you enough. We want to see you more. And you feel handcuffed to the business. Burnout for the entrepreneur can come from feeling in quite legitimately being handcuffed to the business. You have burnouts of the employees as well, but I'll pause there for any kind of response, because that's thing number one is that I've experienced as burnout as an entrepreneur, but very different than entrepreneur or burnout from an employee standpoint.
For sure, 100%. I mean, we always have to take time to make sure that we're doing our job as leaders to equip the staff with the proper resources, tools, and all the things that they need. And so, Matt, I would have to ask you, how can leadership equip their staff and reduce burnout?
Yeah. So I use a 4-quadrant approach to this. And so if you're, people watching this can imagine a 4-quadrant box. On the lower left hand box are things that your team are good at, things that you have people on the team, they're good at this thing, but they do not like doing it. On the bottom right quadrant are things that your team does like doing, but they're not good at. On the top right are things that they're good at and they like doing, and on the top left are things they're great at and they love doing. So if you were to write out this box and rewatch it if you need that order again, it's when people on the team are tasked with things in that bottom left box where they're good at it but they don't like doing it, that leads to burnout. And that's a major error on the leadership's part, if that is not caught, because what happens is because the person on the team or the certain team members are really good at producing the results, or the outcomes they produce are favorable to the company, they continue getting that thing. But what's happening is as they're doing that thing, it's like the life force is getting sucked out of them. And so every single day that they have to get up and go to work, they like it less and less, to the point to where they just feel burnt out. They feel like there's a lack of enjoyment to working for that organization, and they feel trapped in it. And so they're only in these cases like one LinkedIn DM away from somebody saying, hey, are you, open to other opportunities? Have you thought about, leaving and going somewhere else? They're only one DM away from that happening to the organization losing that person because they spent so much time doing something they were good at, but they didn't like doing. And so essentially day after day, the life force was sucked out of them.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I wrote an entire book called Leadership Coaching as a Strategy for Employee Development. And the entire premise of the book, the thesis, was the cost of turnover. Like, it goes through the entire calculation and helps people plug their numbers in to see how much turnover is actually costing them. And when employees and staff members get to that point that they're doing these repetitive tasks, it puts a burden on the organization, because not only is there a challenge with employees who get frustrated, but then when it moves from frustration to also attitude. Have you ever dealt with bad attitudes in any organization you've worked in before, Matt?
That is a thing. Bad attitudes are a thing, and it's one of the most toxic things you can have in an organization for sure. But yes, I've worked around it, and in circumstances where I was not in a leadership position and had no real levers or pulleys to work with to get those toxic bad behaviors or bad attitudes out of the organization, and so was forced to work alongside it, and that was very problematic. And then I've been in circumstances where I have had the pulleys and the levers, and I've been able to work those people out of the organization as a result.
Yeah. If you look at people who are you're coaching, because I know you work with a lot of different medical providers from a coaching perspective. And if you wouldn't mind, tell everybody real quick before we get too much further deep into this, how can people get a hold of you and understand more about your programs and the level of success that you could help them achieve?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm real prevalent on Instagram, Matt Schneider _official. You can find me on LinkedIn, and we have a website, ignitionmastermind.com.
Awesome. Wonderful. So what would you say to those people then, Matt, who just say, I'm not interested in a virtual assistant? Let's throw this out there right at the beginning of this webinar and this presentation. Let's talk about this and get the air open and the transparency to have the conversation about how to actually deal with burnout in organizations. What would you say to those entrepreneurs that are like, I'm not interested in a virtual assistant?
Well, I mean, whatever the solution is, that's what's important, right? I mean, it's what you do not want to do is neuter the potential of the company by way of having people doing things that they either should not be doing or do not need to be doing, right? So, everybody on the team, they want their time, talents, and livelihood to be optimized, right? They don't want their time to be wasted. They don't want their talents to be wasted, and they want their livelihood to continue to expand and elevate over time. And if that's unimportant to a leadership team, then that leadership team is the problem. There's the saying that the fish rot from the head, and in a lot of cases, there is a reduction in productivity, a reduction in NPS score. There's a reduction in overall profitability of the company, not because the team doesn't have the ability to produce, but because they're not being led in a way that they're being given the opportunity to produce what they're capable of. And so if it's not a virtual assistant, if it's a software or hardware, or it's personal development, professional development, so be it. Just the thing is identify what it is and do that thing, so that way the team that has all the potential to create and produce and generate greater profits, they have what they need to be successful, and then you get what you want, which is a more successful, more profitable company as a leader.
Yeah, guys, if you're just tuning in, we are talking about burnout today with Matt Schneider, serial entrepreneur, went from SWAT to six-figure entrepreneur, incredibly talented professional. It just has some great businesses, does some coaching with people, and he's talking about burnout, and he's helping us navigate the conversation about what you can do from the coaching perspective, helping us navigate the conversation about what you can do with your staff. And he's talking about equipping your staff with an option of different resources. Number one, knowing where the challenges are in your staff with the 4-part quadrant. If you missed it, you can go back and watch us on replay. Number two, understanding how to equip those staff with different resources and tools, whether it be a VA or automation or a number of different things. And so show Matt some love in the comments. If you guys like what Matt's saying, or if you've learned something from Matt, go ahead and type in one thing that you've taken away so far. There's been so much value that's been delivered already. All right, Matt, I'm going to bring you back up in just a few slides here, but I want to share with the audience here a couple of things before we get back to Matt. And the first one is we will hear people say from time to time, we only hire in-house. And to that, I would say, from a BBC Global Services perspective, you must have some great managers already. If all you're hiring is in-house people, then you will absolutely love working with an organization, a virtual assistant company like BBC Global Services. In fact, we had a doctor, Dr. Medtu, Pardeep Medtu, who's board certified ocular facial plastic surgeon, and he had this to say about Rose. He said, Rose follows the same protocols we use in the office. We have an efficient process that allows us to respond quickly and offer her guidance if needed. But we're at the point where she's very independent. She asks the right questions. She can identify potential problems so they can be addressed proactively. Guys, so if you only hire in-house, that's why working with an organization, a virtual assistant company like BBC Global Services, where you have direct control of the policies, procedures, and processes to make sure that you have an effective employee working on your staff to help with some of these things when it comes to burnout. And you might be thinking to yourself right now too, like, maybe I'm too small for a virtual assistant. And, that may be the case. But chances are, if you have staff or don't have staff, you need staff right now. That's what this lack of resource is what can cause that burnout to happen and occur. And so we have Dr. Agarwal coming up in a couple of weeks on Thursday, October 19th, 2023 at 2 p.m. Eastern, or 3 p.m. That should say 3 p.m. Eastern time. We have Dr. Agarwal coming up at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and she is going to be sharing with you just a coffee talk on elevating your practice. So you're not going to want to miss that. That's October 19th, 2023. And the reason that Dr. Agarwal may be important to you is if you have a small practice, she said that she was relatively small practice, not a huge part of the hospital system, but BBC Global Service allowed us to be more patient focused and provide the kind of experience patients expect. It's great for our practice, and more importantly, it's great for our patients. So Dr. Agarwal also did a case study that's on our website. You can go out to bbcglobalservices.com and download that case study from our website. But let's talk a little bit more with Matt about burnout, right? Because burnout is what we're here to talk about today. And so I have to ask you, Matt, directly, what do you consider burnout? What is burnout?
I would say a total lack of desire to continue is probably how I would define it. If there's something that you once really enjoyed doing, and there was something that was once fulfilling and it no longer is, that's how I would define burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. I pulled the definition here for everybody, and the definition of burnout is a state of physical, emotional, or mental exhaustion caused by excessive or prolonged stress. It's a common problem in many occupations, but it's particularly prevalent in the medical field. And here's why. Okay, here's why. There's this thing called the law of diminishing intent. Matt, have you ever heard anything about the law of diminishing intent before? Has this ever crossed your path before? The longer you wait to do something you know you should do, the greater odds that you'll never actually do it. Have you ever heard that before?
I have, yeah.
I think one of the reasons, and I'll let you speak to this a little bit, I think one of the reasons that burnout is it can be a prevalent. I don't believe that too many people come to work 40 hours a week away from their family, doing something over and over and over again just because they want to do a bad job. So you have to start from that premise. And they want to do a good job, but then see, the thing that happens is it takes them a little bit too long to do the thing they know they should do. And so they lose this little bit of self-worth that they have inside. And when they lose that little bit of self-worth, then it causes them to be in this position where they're like, oh man, heck with it. I have so much going on. I have so much to do. I just cannot get to all of these things. And so have you ever experienced this law of diminishing intent that can happen within organizations, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course. Look, I've got a degree in psychology, and I contribute a lot of this diminishing return to the psychological realm, where it is you reward the things you want repeated, right? And so if what you like and what you want in the culture that you have in your organization are those that self-initiate, and those who find an opportunity, so therefore they act on the opportunity, and they're empowered to act. And then they're continuing to be rewarded for that behavior. That is where you get people to default to action when it's part of your culture. And this is part of the culture we weave into all of our companies. We've got 5 different companies, and I've got a couple of dozen 7-8 figure coaching clients. You want a culture to where people understand that they have the ability to make massive impact, and that they don't work for the leadership. They work with them, right? And so part of the self-initiation piece in this whole element of diminishing return is, have you ever heard that saying, how do you starve a dog? You ever heard someone talk about that? How do you starve a dog? You starve it by every single time, for 20 times in a row, it goes to take a bite of food out of its bowl, you swat it on the nose. And after the 20th time, it will no longer go to try to bite or take a bite of food, and it will just eventually wither away. That's negative reinforcement, right? And so taking a look at what the enforcements are, positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement, is a really important element to empowering your people to take action, and to default, and to also know, Nathan, that action alleviates anxiety. A lot of people, they feel the sense of anxiety build up, and action is the thing that will alleviate it, for the leadership team, the owners, from CEO down to the lowest level.
That's so good, Matt. And that so accurately speaks to this law of diminishing intent in organizations and how it can lead to burnout. Now, I pulled a couple of statistics from a number of different organizations before this conversation on burnout with you. And one of the statistics was that a study comparing indices of burnout between U.S. physicians and the population control sample observed an incident of symptoms of burnout of 37.9% in physicians compared to 27.8% in the control population. And then the same research study a little bit later said in 2021, a study found that 43% of nurses working in U.S. hospitals experienced symptoms of emotional exhaustion. Now, that was in 2021. Can you imagine, after dealing with COVID and everything else that's been going on in the medical industry and the changes in technology and where we're at right now today, can you imagine how this has impacted? I'm sure you've seen this in your coaching business, these stats coming to fruition and actually increasing in stress and burnout, haven't you?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a problem.
There's a couple of other statistics that I pulled here for everybody's help to just get a better understanding of where we're at with this whole concept of burnout in society. Over 50% of clinicians experience burnout in some studies, which lead to questions on how it affects the access to care, patient safety, quality of control, number of other things. And a recent systemic review found the prevalent estimated overall physician burnout from 0 to 80.5% with an average of 19% to 24% across the studies. So there's burnout that's happening anywhere from 0 to 80% in different clinics that are going on. Also, a national study found in 2021, the average physician reported rates of burnout at 42%, with women at 51 and men at 36. Also, healthcare organizations were among the top work locations where doctors burn out in 2021, and more than 3 in 5 physicians experience burnout, according to a study at the Mayo Clinic. So why did I share all these statistics with you, and why is this so important for the audience? It's important for you to understand that if you're a physician and you're taking on some of these administrative tasks, you're doing things that could be automated, outsourced, delegated. These may be additional reasons that the stress is there that's causing these factors of burnout. And we identified as an organization 2 different types of burnout. There's this overload burnout, and then this under-challenged burnout. Overload burnout means that we have too much going on. Matt, have you ever heard of this concept of under-challenged burnout, where people are doing things that they probably should be delegated to somebody else, but they get burned out doing those things?
Yeah. The question is, somebody being burned out because they're doing too much, they're over capacity.
That's one. And then the second one is they're doing things that maybe are not challenging them enough. They're not pushing them to be stronger and better. They're doing repetitive, I don't want to call them menial tasks, because there's no task in an organization that's menial, but they're administrative tasks, or they're tasks that have to be repetitively done by a human being.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with the under-challenged burnout as far as like it being referenced that way, but I understand what you're saying.
For sure. So when we talk about burnout, what puts out our will or our drive? There's a number of different things, and when we were doing our research, we found that put out our will or our drive, or we could also call this the spirit, the human spirit, right? What tamps that down? What are these things in organizations that put that spirit out, that put the flame out from somebody they start in your organization, right, Matt? They start working really hard. They want to do a good job, and then something happens along the way. That's called burnout, guys. That's called burnout. And so what does that to an individual? Well, we did our research. We identified a couple of things: negative influences, fear and doubt, lack of purpose and vision, unresolved past hurts, lack of personal development, hypocrisy and judgment, worry and anxiety, materialism and greed, legalism and burdensome rules, lack of love and compassion in an organization, lack of purpose and vision, overcommitment and lack of boundaries, absence of growth and development, negative environments or toxic relationships, and lack of self-care and well-being. Okay. Today, we don't have time to go through all of those in this webinar, but we're going to talk about a couple of them, Matt, and I'm sure you've dealt with these 2 specifically in organizations before: hypocrisy and judgment. Can you speak a little bit to organizations that may not even realize or recognize that maybe there's some hypocrisy or judgment going on?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. When it comes to hypocrisy, there are very few things in our society that we will put lower than hypocrisy, right? And if there is, in an organization, look, like if you're in a leadership position and you have a title of a leader, and you're taking that do as I say, not as I do approach, or you have established core values and you as a leader are in direct conflict of those core values, or you allow for some people to be out of alignment with them while others are forced to be in alignment, and that kind of hypocrisy, it will not be allowed for long term. People will not. The only people that will align themselves with hypocrites are other hypocrites. So if you want an organization, full of hypocrites, then go ahead and be one as a leader. But I can tell you that as an entrepreneur myself, I will have no problem taking that business out if it's full of hypocrites. So it's cancer. You cannot have that. But it starts from the top down. You've got to lead from a place of integrity. You got to, whatever those core values are. As a leader, you're the first to demonstrate them always. And then you talk with your feet, not with your mouth, when it comes to that component. And you never allow for hypocrisy to exist in the organization. it'll erode it rapidly. The judgment, though, what do you mean by judgment? In what regard are you referring to that?
Sure. So I love this question, and I like that you asked it of me because I wrote about this in that book, Leadership Coaching as a Strategy for Employee Development. And what I talked about was the cycle of resistance, where a boss puts together a new project. Then, for whatever reason, that project fails. 60% of the time, projects are going to fail anyways. Then there's a change in the economy, something happens, employees don't receive bonuses, whatever it happens to be. And then there is, some type of new technology or something that has to shift in that business. And then the leader blames the staff member again. And it starts this whole concept of judgment of the team member versus looking at the policy, the process, or the procedure first, right? So if we pass judgment on a team member, then those team members can become burned out or disenchanted when it's nothing that they did. Maybe a system's broken, maybe something's not working properly. And so that's one of the things that, at BBC Global that I absolutely love about the organization is that we're going to define those processes and systems that administrative team member is going to be working with you and make sure that it's documented and recorded so that we know how to do it each and every time. And we can measure those results effectively. And that keeps us from passing ill-perceived judgment on a team member, knowing what their production is and knowing if we're following the policies and procedures. So that's what I mean by judgment. I think it's important that organizations stay true to not judging people, but judging their processes and systems first. If you made the judgment to hire the person, guys, then it might be wise to have the faith that it's maybe not the person. Maybe it's something we need to do as a leader in our organization to kind of smooth that process out first and then go back and see if it's a personnel issue. The next thing that we're going to talk about today in dealing with burnout is this lack of purpose and vision. Lack of purpose and vision. How many times, Matt, have you seen employees or teams burn out or slow down when there's a lack of purpose or vision?
I mean, yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, it's interesting, Nathan. I mean, for me, I operate very firmly on like leadership's the problem. It is the solution. When it comes to the lack of vision or the burnout associated with lack of vision, in many cases, the leadership team, or maybe even the top down, the one that's supposed to be the visionary, the CEO, the top seat, doesn't have clarity on what the vision is. And so how are they able to communicate to their top line leaders, which eventually gets to the rest of the organization, what the vision is if they themselves don't know it? And then how are you supposed to have a team that's going to help you build a company to meet the goals so that the vision is achieved if nobody even really knows what it is? And how do you keep a team fired up about the direction that you're going if they don't understand what the vision is? And so it is something to where they're chasing profitability, they're chasing growth and capturing more market share, but the vision isn't very vivid, and therefore it's non-communicated, and the team isn't quite sure where they're going and what they're doing, and so therefore they lose that fire of what it's all for.
I love that answer. So let's talk a little bit more about vision, and let's park here for a second because I want to know if you have any practical tips for a clinician, whether it be an optometrist or a physical therapist or chiropractor or whoever is watching today in the audience. Do you have any practical tips? I don't want anybody to leave today thinking that a chiropractic firm is a chiropractic firm, an optometry firm is just an optometry firm. Talk to this whole concept of vision a little bit and some practical tips that people can use to cultivate vision in their firm.
Well, I mean, look, when it comes to the top seat, we all can recognize that when you're in the thick of it, it can be challenging to be able to see the forest of the trees. It can be challenging without having others that are a part of what you're doing and helping you create the vision. It can be hard to achieve it. I've got a coaching client. Her name's Dr. Val. In fact, I think I even referred her, and she's a client of BBC Global now because her thing is she worked all day, adjusts clients all day, and she loves it. She loves that piece of it. But then she goes home and she's doing the charts and the administrative stuff in the evenings. And so it's really taking its toll on her family, and her husband's a police officer, and he loves her dearly, and it's just not sustainable what's happening with her working all day only to go home and work all night. And so how does somebody who's that entrenched in the technical work find the time to be the visionary and to develop a vision for the company? You just can't. You're not. I mean, entrepreneurs are amazing, but we're not superhuman. Like, right? We're not able to accomplish superhuman tasks like that. And so it requires understanding when it's time to bring other people in, right? And who those people are, and when it's time to bring them in. It just kind of depends on what the current pain points and bottlenecks and friction points are. But so many times, Nathan, the answer to people's problems, the answer to an entrepreneur's problems is not what do I need to do. In fact, that's like one of the worst things that oftentimes an entrepreneur can do is say, what do I need to do? When the real question that needs to be asked is, who do I need to help? Who do I need to find that has the ability to help me understand what I'm doing wrong? Blind spots are called blind spots for a reason. What are my blind spots? Why do I keep falling into these pitfalls? Why am I continuing to have to do the technical work day after day, month after month, year after year? And I used to love what I was doing, but now I don't, right? And who do I need to find to help me understand what it is that I need to do? Because if I keep doing what I'm doing, nothing is going to change. And when they answer that question, that is when things will start to change in a favorable way for them. Who that person is and where they come from, that's all dependent. But in many cases, when it comes to this vision piece of it, for a visionary or an entrepreneur who doesn't have the time or bandwidth to create a vision, they need to bring somebody in that can help them look 3 years ahead, say what 3 years from now, what does your company look like, and then reverse engineer that into big annual goals that then break down to quarterly, then monthly, and then like a weekly scorecard, right? And then from there, that's how you start to take little incremental bites that ultimately end up at a real big project getting done.
That's awesome, Matt. Thank you very much for taking some time to talk with us today, specifically about burnout. Can you tell people how to get a hold of you again and how they can follow up with you if they like some of the stuff that's resonated with them and what you're saying?
Yeah, totally. So, as it relates to the whole business coaching thing, that's ignitionyear.com, ignitionyear.com. You can find me on social. Instagram is Matt Schneider _official. And then that's the same on LinkedIn as well.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate you being with us today. I'm going to have you hang on just till the very end in case anybody has any specific questions with you. But for this part of the webinar, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. So we're talking with Matt Schneider about burnout today. We're talking about this topic of burnout because we need to make sure that we're doing a couple of things to ignite our team members and make sure that they stay on fire and lit towards the goals and the vision and the purpose that we have. And we do that where we're in a state of being values driven and not having hypocrisy in our organization and not passing judgment too early on our team members. And so if you're looking to reignite the fire of your organization, the first thing I have to say before we answer, how do you relight this fire in the organization, to summarize some of the things we talked about? Number one, people, quick people, not companies. That's a John Maxwell quote right out of the book Leadership Gold. If you're looking for a good leadership book to read on this concept of how do we deal with some of this burnout challenges. And when you're reigniting the flame and the passion, Matt talked about a couple of things, but I think it starts with this thing here. Matt's a coach. He does a lot of coaching and personal growth with people. And I think that it starts there. If you're going to relight the fire, the passion of your own development, it starts with personal growth and continue learning. What can you do in order to grow yourself so that you can make better decisions for the organization? I think we got to make sure that we put in place this whole piece of power of positive thinking, like we've been talking about, values driven organizations, looking at how do we stay focused on the positive things and not on the negative things of the organization. And then lastly, equipping yourself with resources, whether that happen to be outsourcing, whether that's automation, whether it's delegation, but but you got to utilize the resources if you're going to reignite the flame. Whether it's for yourself or a team member, these three things have to be prevalent if you're looking to grow yourself, your company, or if you're looking to reduce burnout in the organization. So I find these things to be very helpful. As I go through webinars like this, I always wonder and ask myself this question: what is the one thing that I can take away? Whether that's what Matt talked about in the 4 quadrants, whether that's the 3 different options that you have for equipping your team member. How about this question here? What can a medical virtual assistant do to spark growth and reduce burnout? There's a couple of different things. And so we've talked about these things on this webinar today. Task delegation. You heard about work-life balance of one of Matt's clients. You talked about increased efficiency, flexibility, skill matching. Look, VAs come with a variety of different skills, and organizations can match skills and tasks to specific VAs who are looking for that right set of skills. This can lead to tasks being completed more proficiently and in less time in some cases. So maybe you're not good at, I got to keep the books. I got to keep the books. Maybe it's best to hire somebody to do a lot of the data entry so that you don't have to do the thing that's not in your skill set. All right, how about this? Lowering costs. VAs can help lower costs and reduce costs in organizations. All right. So overall, like people ask us all the time, what can a VA specifically do for my organization? If I hire BBC Global Services, what are some tasks that I can have them do? And so I just put some of these tasks up on the screen for you so that you can see them and have them and understand them. Number 1, scheduling appointments. Number 2, managing patient records. Number 3, providing administrative support. Number 4, communicating with patients, actually being on the phone and talking with patients, rescheduling or if missed appointments happen, they can call and reschedule those appointments. Performance research, they can look into your EMR system or your CRM system, depending on the type of organization you are, and pull reports and do research for you. Processing insurance claims, they can provide billing support. These things are different things that VAs can do to lift the burden and to help with burnout in your organization. And so this is what BBC Global Services does. Like, how does this process work? What does it look like? Why is this so important to me? Well, here's what BBC Global Services does for you. Number 1, they provide you that medical virtual assistant, that full-time dedicated team member to do some of those tasks and lift the burden from you. They also provide that team member with BBC Global a supervisor, a team lead, a support, somebody that understands your campaign and knows what's going on in your organization and can be additional management resource for you to make sure things are getting done the way you want them getting done through a BBC Global team member, your medical virtual assistant. We also track time. So we make sure that the time of that team member is tracked efficiently and effectively, and that they work the hours that you choose for that person to work. We also provide you with a report. So this can be a daily report or weekly report, but it's a report of the productivity of that employee, measuring the results, measuring the performance so that you know how they stand effectively and efficiently. That way we can remove the hypocrisy, we can remove the judgment, and we can look to see exactly what that team member is doing. And then lastly, we provide an integrated leadership model, meaning that you get to lead this employee. If you want to change the way that they're doing something, if you need to reach out and offer some feedback or suggestions, the same way that you would handle an internal team member that just happens to be working in our offices, they're your team member. They work directly for your campaign, directly for your organization. And so they're dedicated to you, and they're also HIPAA compliant. So we did a whole webinar about that. Again, if you stay until the end, we'll send you out our HIPAA compliance webinar and show you all the steps that we take as a team, as a vendor, to make sure that we're maintaining that HIPAA compliant. Okay, so a possibility is a hint from the divine that one must follow it. Again, John Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. A possibility is a hint from the divine that one must follow it. If you're thinking that a VA might be a possibility for your organization, maybe it's a hint that it's time to at least explore that opportunity and have a conversation with somebody from BBC Global. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. I put it into the presentation already. It's just bad timing for me. It's just bad timing. I want to do a VA, just now's not a good time. Maybe it might be wise to take this step just a little bit before you are ready so that you have the information. Because when we're thinking about it, remember back to that law of diminishing intent. The longer you wait to do something, the more likely you're never to do it. So if you're thinking that, it's just bad timing for me, maybe now's the exact right time to at least take action and do something. All right. How about this? I don't have all the knowledge on how to do this. I don't know how to outsource a team member. Well, that's what BBC Global Services does for you. We do the recruiting. We do the interviewing work. We set them up. We put them in our offices. We're the ones that works with that team member and gets them onboarded with you. We help you through your training process to make sure that we have accurate trainings in place and that they know how to do the things that you want to do. We help you and handhold you every step of the way at BBC Global Services to make sure that you do know how to do this as you walk through the process with us. All it just takes is just reaching out to somebody. Go to bbcglobalservices.com, reach out to one of our team members, schedule an appointment, and have a conversation with them. All right, lastly, how about this one? This might be something you're thinking right now too. Like, I'm afraid of making a big mistake. And while I understand the sentiment when somebody has said this to me in the past, I'm afraid of making a mistake with hired VA. Let me tell you a little bit about Mark Planner, who's a physical therapist and founder of Impact Physical PT. This is what he had to say. Wormley, his VA, is able to work independently and rarely has to contact us with questions. This has helped us achieve our vision for providing high quality, unrushed care while growing our practice. I think that what Mark would tell you is it's probably a mistake not to hire the medical virtual assistant and to have somebody there as additional support for your team so that you can continue to provide care and provide the care that you want to. And for Mark, we were able to create this report for him, and it's a similar report that we could create for you. It talks about the number of appointments or EMR filings or calls that were made, some notes from their VA, and you get this daily so that you can see this report in your organization and kind of set some goals and set an understanding of what you have your team member accomplishing for you on a daily basis as a medical virtual assistant. As we close up here, I just wanted to make sure I pointed out that we do have a little bit of recognition that we've received from Clutch and Global Outsourcing Firm Index. And then also, you might have seen us at a number of trade shows. If you're seen us around at a number of different trade shows, if you do, you should stop by our booth. In those trade shows, we do give away a lot of different prizes and just different gifts. And so it's always fun when we see all of you clinicians out at the trade shows. I'd like to say thank you to the ones that have stopped by our booth recently. All right. People have asked us, how do you take care of your team member? What does my team member get? So when we hire somebody at BBC Global Services, this is their benefits. They get health insurance. They get 12 days of paid time off per year, 12 sick days. They get a monthly allowance for travel, internet. They get interest-free loans. In the Philippines, there's this thing that goes on with these loan shark programs, and we just happen to provide additional support in that area. That's what that's about. Employee engagement activities, we do that. We also provide financial literacy class, 13 months of pay, an accident reduction program. We have double pay on holidays, different holidays that are specific to the country and cities that people are in, shift meals, a number of different benefits. The culture of BBC, gosh, if you guys have missed any of our previous webinars that we have done, go back and watch those. It'll tell you all about the culture, tell you all about the benefits, tell you all kinds of stuff that you need to know. You can do your research on our YouTube channel for hours, or you can pick up the phone and call somebody and talk to us, schedule a meeting through bbcglobalservices.com, and we'll be happy to have that conversation with you. All right, so people ask, there's a couple of different VA companies out there. What makes BBC Global different? And this is those things. There's no setup fees or long-term contracts. Staffing in our offices for HIPAA compliant staff. We have HIPAA compliant certifications for our staff members. Employee placement guarantee. No charge to find a new replacement if for whatever reason the employee doesn't work out. No additional fees beyond the hourly rate. I also want to say this, back to the no placement fee guarantee. We have a very low turnover rate at BBC Global Services. In fact, I think it was like 0.07% all of last year. And so we don't often lose team members. And so they stick with your firm long term if they're the right fit. No additional fees beyond the hourly rate. Offices in India, Philippines, and Mexico, and Canada, US, our HIPAA compliant offices are in the Philippines. BBC Global Staffing Expert is there to help you all along the way. US-based leadership team and operations staff. Also, we have over 22 years of experience in this global staffing. BBC this manager or team lead, this integrated manager, is there for support for you and for your team member. We also have assistance with procedure documentation and recording future references, so that if you decide that you're going to add team members in the future, we have those procedures documented and we can easily scale up with you as you're trying to grow your medical clinics and staff. Integrated leadership model. You work directly with your staff member for feedback. They attend your company meetings, participate as part of your team. There's not a shared service. This is a dedicated team member. They utilize your current systems. We also provide the daily reporting. So those are the difference makers that we have at BBC Global. That's what makes us different. All right, guys. For those of you that have hung on to the end, if any of you have any questions, you can feel free to put those in the chat. I'd like to bring Mike Yablonowitz back up to say a few words, and if there is any questions, we can get those answered.
Yeah,
What's up, Mike?
Well, I just want to clear up one misstatement you said, is that it was a 0.04% churn rate, not
0.04.
No, we do spend a lot of time with our agents and in culture, because at the end of the day, like you were saying, without the agents, there's no business, there's no support, there's nothing. So without those people, they have no business, the clients don't have continuity, and I don't have a job. And we all want to keep everything. But one of the things I want to say, and we are ending close in the hour, is that we create all of this content, these webinars, based specifically on what we hear from our prospects and our clients. We don't make up these webinars to hear ourselves talk, even though, I do like hearing myself talk. And I think Nathan does too, to a certain extent. But it really is to answer questions that our clients have. And I want to thank Nathan for all the hard work and all of his research and taking, what he's heard from the clients and really trying to put together a presentation that resonates with everybody. Lastly, I definitely want to thank Matt for coming on. It was a last minute addition, but knowing him and knowing what he does, I thought it was a great opportunity to share some insight of someone that came from SWAT to an 8-figure entrepreneur. And he has a really good take on the whole situation. And I also want to thank everybody out there for sharing this time. Again, as Nathan said, if we could be of any assistance, not even just of using our staff, but kind of talking about, how an outsourced solution can help you and your clinic and your office manage those mundane tasks that and free you up to do more of patient care or go see your kids' little league game. I'm more than happy to speak with you, and so is anybody else on our staff. Thanks so much for the time you spent, and have a great day. Nathan, anything else to share?
Yeah, Pam, I want to make sure I get an answer to Pam's question here, and I'll let you take it, Mike, and then I can piggyback on that. But she asked, from a cost perspective, how is a medical VA beneficial compared to hiring my own employee to do the task? So I'll let you take that, Mike, first.
And I will talk to that. That's a loaded question, but so there's a few reasons. There's a few things. First of all, the actual physical cost of a medical VA is based on the type of caliber you get, is less expensive. So an average VA, depending, will be anywhere from $10 to $11 an hour, and that person is highly educated. A lot of times, usually medically educated, a nurse of some sort or some sort of a background in healthcare. Also, all the people that we find and we place are all seasoned, so they usually have BPO experience. And when I say BPO experience, they've worked with other healthcare facilities in the past, like U.S.-based healthcare facilities. So in that case, it's better. Better is a strong word. Second of all, you don't have to with hiring an outsourced staff. You don't have to handle any of the HR or the management that you do when you have an in-house staff. This is also not to say that in-house staff are bad. It's not. It's outsourced staffs are good at augmenting a current staff, but a lot of times for like solo entrepreneurs and smaller businesses, just having to manage another person in the office is a distraction to itself. So to be able to outsource those tasks, those process-oriented tasks, is not even a cost-effective way to do it and save you on the HR and all that sort of stuff. But it takes away the distraction of handling a staff member. And also, lastly, and this is just a a tough state right now, is that people are finding it hard to staff. A lot of the clients that we have come to us, uh, not just because they think it's a great idea, but because they're having such a tough time finding people to show up to work right now to do these menial, not menial, mundane, task-oriented tasks. Everything from filing, answering the phones, doing patient verification, doing all of the things that a front desk person would do. Um, that's a lot of it now too. So it's a tough combination of what's making people come to an outsourced firm like ours. But for the most part, still, and I'm happy to say, a majority of the people that we bring on are businesses that have one person, right, or two people, and they either can't find another person, right, U.S. based, that's reliable, or they'd rather try to work with an outsourced staff to augment their current staff. But that is really kind of, I hope that kind of answers the question. But it really is a combination of things, Nathan. But at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is that with us, and the reason why I could say that we can be a little bit more successful, is that we have people in the office, and that not only manages the people to make sure that they are doing what they're doing, but from a HIPAA compliance level, like, we are totally buttoned up. So you have people in the office, all the levels of compliance is there. We're backed by a third party compliance firm that checks us. So, as much as they are outsourced, the fact that they're in an office and they have a manager around them, it's as close to having a staff member on premises as possible without them being in your office. And that's pretty much, I think, how I answered the question. And usually, as I do, it's very wordy, and I hope I got most of the stuff right.
Pam, I hope that was helpful for you. I would tell you, just to summarize, from my perspective, this is the way that I have found it. The cost of a medical virtual assistant is about 60% less than what you'd have to pay a U.S. staff member to do the same thing. Number two, it's cost effective because you have the additional resources that comes from partnering with a vendor like BBC Global Services. So the daily reports and the reporting was instrumental in growing the medical device organization that I work for. And then also the team approach, by having a leader and a manager that oversaw that team member, where I could focus my time and my team's time on tasks that were a little bit more patient focused, a little bit more caring for the clinic that we were working in. And so for the direct response to you, 60% less of the cost. The daily reports were additional benefit that I needed that didn't cost me any money to do. And the manager that was there to make sure they were following our systems and protocols, and I didn't have to babysit that process as a supervisor, was very helpful for us and very cost effective. So I hope that answers your question.
And one thing I want to bring up, because is that another thing to know, is that the manager is not a fee. The manager is part of the deal. So when you pay for your agents, part of the fee comes to pay for that manager that manages the people. So there's no additional fees, like Nathan said in the beginning. It's simply just the cost of the staff.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions online, that was a great question, Pam. I appreciate that question. Thank you very much for asking it. And thanks, Mark, to Matt Schneider, that came from SWAT to Serial Entrepreneur to be a part of this program today to help you guys from the coaching perspective on how to deal with burnout within your organization. Thank you again, Mike, for having me to host yet another successful BBC Global webinar. In these series, we hope that people are taking the information, utilizing it, improving their practices with it. And if you guys feel necessary that it's time for the medical virtual assistant, please go to bbcglobalservices.com and talk with somebody. Have the conversation. Go see how much exactly that staff member would end up costing your organization. Pam, go take a look at it. And we're here to help you guys. Until next time, remember, we'll have Dr. Argwal on, and she's coming up on October 19th at 3 p.m. So you're not going to want to miss that. That's going to be how to elevate your practice. And she is a BBC Global client. So if you're wondering and want to ask some questions, you can ask that directly of Dr. Argwal. So thank you. See you guys. Bye, Mike. Thank you.